Hey. We are back here again today, and we're going to be doing a teardown of this Kodak EasyShare printer dock, and this one's a Series 3 model. The one that I actually printed this from, or that image you just saw there on the intro, was actually this one here. This one's just the EasyShare printer dock. So, as the name would suggest, a printer dock, this is actually a dock, and what's supposed to happen is you have certain cameras that would plug into the top here. You could print directly off the camera. You could go into the menu there, select what pictures you want to print, and then you would print them out here directly to the printer without having to go through like a PC or anything. Well, these two, as you can tell, are just slightly different. Like, they have different bases here, so it kind of depended on the model, which printer dock I guess you would use. This actually came as a kit, and a friend of mine had actually bought this like years ago, and basically it was something like this. So, you'd get the camera, it had the printer dock, here's like the paper tray. And I don't have the camera because when my friend bought this, he kept the camera, but he didn't want the printer for whatever reason. I don't know why. So he asked me if I wanted the printer. I was like, oh, sure, yeah. Because it's cool because you can actually, use it as a standalone printer with a PC. There is a USB connector here in the back. But besides those two methods, you can also print from like a USB source, like a little memory stick or like a little thumb drive or whatever, which is actually what I did here. I just put that image that printed on an SD card, and I just stuck it into this adapter, plugged it into here, and then I was able to just print that one image. It actually took me 2 tries to print the image. The first one, it kind of got cut off on the sides here. Well, because what the printer tries to do is it tries to fit the image to the paper, and this being a 4x6, and then the image was square, so basically it cut off like a lot of the sides here. It would have been like, something like that, square. So it tries to fit it so that it's gonna be basically printing like borderless. Although it doesn't exactly print borderless, because there is like a small amount of space here, as you can see on this one here, and then there's like kind of a score going along here, and then one along here on the bottom. So what you're supposed to do is, like, once you print out your picture, you break those ends off, and then you have basically a borderless picture. And I use this printer to print like, quite a few pictures that we've had around the house. I haven't actually used it in a while, mostly because the drivers for this thing, it was like one of those web installers that when you ran the installer, it would connect to like the Kodak servers or whatever, and then it would download the drivers and install it that way. I think I had found one that was supposed to be like an entire driver package, but I couldn't get it to work for whatever reason. I never really went back and tried it again. So it's kind of a little pet peeve, those stupid web installers that have to like connect somewhere before it'll download your driver or whatever. It's like an installer package, but it doesn't actually have the driver in it. This is a picture actually printed out, it's like years ago, for one of the birds we used to have. And do you know the basically the parrot here was already filling in like most of the image. If I would have let the printer print as is, it would have like cut off like part of his head, and then it would have been flatter than it already looks right there. So you can see on the bottom here that we have kind of like a little white line running across and up right here. So I had to scale this picture in a way that the printer wasn't going to cut off much more from the original image. And the quality is actually not terrible. It actually looks pretty good. One thing that's kind of funny, and I'm probably not going to be able to show it here on camera, but if we look at it kind of from the side, it's actually slightly textured. And that's because the way this printer works is it doesn't use ink. It's not like an inkjet printer where it's depositing ink on the paper. It has these cartridges that are installed right here on the side that are actually, it's a film, and this one here is on the clear part, but let me show you the one from here because this one was on a different spot. So as you can see, this one here is yellow. So it's got a section of yellow, a section of cyan, and a section of magenta, and then a part of like a clear. So what it does is it takes turns depositing each color onto the paper. So first it runs and it'll do like yellow, and then it'll run again, and then it'll do cyan. So it keeps like going in and out, in and out. I'm probably gonna like show a little clip here because I recorded it, like the process as it was going. So it does each color, and then at the end it puts like a layer of a clear over it, so it actually it turns out like extremely glossy, and they actually look pretty nice. I bought this kit here. It's like a 160 sheet kit, and it came with the cartridges and everything a while ago, and I haven't even used it all up because I couldn't use it with the PC. We did want to print out some pictures. I think we just ended up going to like one of the stores that had like those printers and those picture printers where you like stick in your SD card or your compact flash or whatever. The USB uses this really tiny kind of almost square connector, which is really annoying because it's not really a common size. So in all honesty, I think I have like maybe 2 cables that will actually fit this printer. The other connector here, that's just the 24 volt power supply connector. This one here, this Series 3 dock, actually has a mini USB, so this one would have been like, easier to get a cable for. I got like a ton of mini USB cables. I just kind of looked at one of my containers there. I'll find one. I actually picked this up at a thrift store for 90 cents. Just this. I had actually seen them previously, and I kept thinking about, maybe I should pick one up to do a teardown. I should pick one up to do a teardown because I didn't want to tear mine down, because if I end up screwing something up, then I'm kind of hosed. I won't be able to use it anymore. But I've actually seen these in thrift stores like pretty often, and I've always just kind of hesitated picking one up, and I finally did. So finding a complete set might be a little more difficult. This one here was not a complete set. It was just a printer. I think what it uses is a thermal printer to print out the image, but we're going to see. So, well, let's get started here. These, the actual dock part uses these clear bases, and I guess there's like different molds depending on what your camera shape is, so that it would cradle there, and it's not going to put like a lot of stress on this connector here. It's already a little bit flexible, like well, not flexible, but they made it so that it can move around a little bit so that it's not rigid, and when you pop your camera in there, you're not going to be like able to break it too easily. So it is a little bit mobile there. There are a couple screws here in the back that will probably need to come off. There's a few screws here on the bottom. There's these little rubber pads. I don't know if there's any screws hiding underneath these. And there is not. Okay, so those don't need to come out. So let's see. Let's start off by taking off those 5 screws and see where that gets us. Well, these are definitely releasing something, because when I loosen them up, they don't even like come up. They just kind of, whatever's in there just sort of like drops. All right, let's see. Is this going to come off? Ah, it's opening. There we go. So here comes the cover. Sort of. And there's you can see the main board there. Okay, there's a couple ribbons here. Let's unplug those. Those are, one of these ribbons is going up to the dock connector at the top. This other one here is going to the control panel. So there comes the cover. So yeah, this one was just the 2 screws being held right there. Got the board here for all the buttons and LEDs that are on the top right here. We'll take a look at underneath that here in a sec. And then that little plastic piece right there is holding the actual dock connector from being able to come down. But that whole board there, as we can see, is pretty free to kind of move around. Okay, so there is the board. That looks like it's going to be our little processor there, and that's actually it's a Kodak branded part, so it's probably like their own custom thing going on there. That's funny, when you think of digital photography, you really don't think of Kodak, even though I guess they were like, one of the first to kind of pioneer the stuff, but they just didn't really do much with it. And it looks like we got a flash here. We got a big ribbon cable back here that looks like it's going to be going to the actual printer. There's another ribbon here, so that's probably got something to do with the printer as well. Let's see. It looks like those screws on the bottom there were just for holding this mechanism in place then, so maybe it will just drop out. Well, that was easy. So here's the bottom part. That is just it's almost like an entire tub, and then it just has the doors there for accessing the paper input and then the cartridge. There's a slot back here, as you can see. This is where the paper actually comes out and back in when it's printing. Okay, so here's where all the magic happens. We have a couple of more plastic pieces here. This looks like it's just, yeah, it looks like it's just for kind of using some support, keeping some support on the paper there so it doesn't come up too much. It just kind of holds it down. Roller here. a gear train right here that would be running all like the paper rollers, you know, the ones that pull the paper in and stuff. A couple of stepper motors. We got a little one here, and then a slightly bigger one here. A fan on the back to keep the unit cool, I'm guessing. And that just unplugs. That just unplugs. I said that just unplugs. That just unplugs, okay. Finally. So what we got here is we got an X-fan. Not an X-Man. Or X-Men. X-fan. That's running at 5 volts. Uses 0.13, so 130 milliamps? It's funny, because it looks like it's got a comma there. Comma 0.13A. So, I'm not sure if they're trying to say that it's 13 milliamps or 130 milliamps. But, okay, either way, a little tiny fan there on this assembly. That black thing right there looks like it's the actual printhead. The paper path on this is actually extremely simple. It just basically goes in and out a few times. So the cartridge goes in like this. The printheads are on the top here. I should probably get some better lighting here so you guys can see that. Okay, so the printer pulls in the paper and it comes into here like that. It goes along the bottom of the cartridge there. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that or not, but the paper kind of goes along the bottom. Maybe I'll just pull it out. It goes underneath the film. So basically it's going something like this. So the paper comes in, it goes underneath the film, and comes out the back. When the printer goes to do the first layer, it starts pulling in the paper, and as it goes, the print head is depositing the material on the paper, so it comes out, you know, it does the entire first layer. When that's done, it backs all the way up, it goes to the second color. Actually, I could probably advance this a bit. Let me see. Should be able to just do it this way. Alright, here we go. I finally got to it. So we can see right here that we're going to get a transition from yellow, and it goes along a black line here. It's actually numbered. That one has a 7 there. Let me just give it some slack. And there we go. So now we're starting to hit the magenta part of the film. You know, I'm wondering if I back this up enough, we might be able to see the image on the previous bits of film there. I'll try that and I'll see if we can see, you know, what was printed on this but the last time. If it was even used at all, I'm not sure. So that's how that works there. The paper, yeah, just goes in straight and then just comes out straight. Basically, there's no like a bunch of rollers where it's got to, like, you know, curve through like a, say, like an inkjet printer, you know, where it comes in, it kind of goes around the back, it kind of comes out the front. So nope, just straight in and out on this one. We can take off these screws here, and looks like we should be able to look at the other side of the board there. I'm going to get a closer shot of the board so we can kind of look around at stuff there, but yeah. Alright, remove the screws, pulled out the ribbons, and this is the underside. This right here looks like it's a couple drivers or something. Those are probably going to be driving the printhead? Oh, no. These are for the motors, because they connect to here, and these are the ones going off to the motors here, and then this might be like maybe some switches or something. Yeah, we have like a couple of little switches right there. Not sure what else is in here. Oh yeah, there's a couple more switches in there. We'll probably get a better look at those in a bit here. This is going to be the print head right here. This is actually, it's like on a little hinge there on both sides, so I guess it can move so it can put some pressure on the paper when it's printing. So that moves down like that. You can see that there's the rollers for the take up and the supply right here. This has a one-way bearing, it looks like. It can only easily spin one way, or it's got like a little clutch mechanism up here. So I guess if it needs to, you know, retract some slack or whatever, it can. We can actually, since there's really no risk of damaging this now that I open this up, I'll set up the other one and we'll reprint that image there, the welcome to the workbench, and we'll see it in operation. And we can see how everything kind of moves and stuff like that. I think that would be pretty neat. Alright, other things on this board here, we've got a little memory chip there. This is probably for like storing the image you're going to print, I'm guessing. Pretty sure this chip here probably, doesn't have like a ton of processing power or, built-in memory or anything. This printer is actually pretty old. Not exactly sure when it was manufactured, but it's been more than 10 years since I've got that, so it's fairly old, and they wouldn't have been using like a really beefy processor probably. A couple of things on here. There is some printing right here that says VHD adjust, and that would be that right there. And then there's another one here that says BAT adjust. So I'm guessing that would be for the adjustment on the charging circuit for the battery, because the dock will also charge your battery on the camera. And there's actually a set of LEDs here that shows, like a dead battery and then like a full battery, and then there's just 3 LEDs there that would light up for that. There's also an LED here for, I guess, a paper error or something, and then here's one for the color cartridge. There's a couple of buttons here. This one shows a little PC with an arrow going into it, although I'm not sure what the heck that's even supposed to do. I don't remember ever using it. And then this other one button here just kind of lets you select what you want to print. Like if you want to print 1 image per sheet, 2 images per sheet, 4 images per sheet, or this one here has 9. The button here in the middle, that one will print, so as soon as you plug in the USB thing, if you hit that one after you select what you want to print here, it will print. There's a couple arrows here, which by itself I don't think they're really useful for anything, unless somehow this manages to select a different image from the USB, but you just have to memorize what images are actually on there. I don't know if it would do that or not. Or maybe it's when you have the camera on there, you can use that to select next picture or whatever. I don't know. Like I said, I never had the camera for the thing, so never really got to mess with any of that, because when you plug it into the PC, basically it just functions like a regular printer. The only thing that kind of sucked was that it was kind of finicky, or it is kind of finicky, if I could get it to work. And sometimes I would have to like unplug power and replug it before I could get it to do anything on the PC. Like I couldn't just leave it plugged in all the time. For some reason, sometimes it would just refuse to work, but it would work just fine after unplugging it and plugging it back in. So I don't know, go figure. But anyways, we can remove, what else? Looks like we can remove the print head by pulling off this clip here, and we can see what the other side of that looks like. Oh, that's actually looks like it's just a plastic clip. It should just be able to easily pull it off here without any tools. And there it goes. That was easy. So, let's see, will this move to the side? Looks like maybe if I remove this little plastic clip here that holds the cartridge in place, this may come out. Okay, that was kind of interfering with being able to move this to the side, I think. So let's see, will that help? Not really. I guess that didn't do much. Alright, how does it come out? How does it come out? Let's see. Okay, it's going to require having to take some more of this stuff out, because these white pieces here, that one in there, they kind of prevent it from being able to move side to side. So can't do any of that without... Can't remove that without taking that out first. Let's see. Looks like there's a small screw here. We should be able to remove this whole bracket here holding these 2 motors. This tiny motor here, that one's the one for advancing the cartridge. You can see there. There's a bit of gearing going on there. There's a little pinion on the motor there, and then there's like a bigger spur gear right here. Goes to the bottom shaft, and then that's what drives that. And then that black piece right there is the one that engages with the cartridge. This side over here would have to be the take-up, because as I mentioned that the paper comes in and then it starts printing as it's going out this way. You would want the take-up to be running at the same speed as the paper, so it doesn't like pull it too fast, or at a different speed than the paper's coming out. So this one here only engages when this thing moves to engage it, and I don't know exactly what. I mean, there's only 2 motors. It doesn't look like there's any other actuators on here. So when this motor turns a certain way, that's going to be when this thing actuates. And I can't turn this by hand. So I'm wondering if there's something locking it in place. Let's see if we put the cartridge in and remove it. That's a no. Okay, I guess this little tiny motor here actually has something to do with locking this mechanism as well, I guess, so this doesn't try to run, you know, out of time compared to everything else. There's some other stuff kind of going on in there. Okay, just removing one screw here and one screw here will allow me to remove these motors, and that actually should also allow the printhead to come out. That big pin right there that was holding this side on, where the printhead pivots, is part of this assembly here. So this is all coming out, but it is spring loaded, so it's giving me a little bit of a problem there. But there it goes. So there we go. There's our two motors. There is the pinion for that bigger one. There's the tiny one. So that's all that's on there. That is the rest of the gear train right here. Okay, yeah, we can see that there's like there's this little lever right here that's actuated by the gearing that's driven by the small motor. So I think that's what was locking this from doing anything. Or actually, it's just really hard to turn, like in general. So I'm guessing it wasn't locked. It was just really hard to turn, and then the drag from the motor up here was making it even harder to turn anyway. So yeah, it's not locked. It's just really difficult. So now looks like this might be able to come out. Maybe. Maybe not. It's still not coming out, but it looks like this should pop up here. You can see that it's fit into that slot, so this is probably just popped into place. Let me see if I can pop it out. Ah, clever. You see this little pin right here? That little pin is locking that piece from being able to come out. So if I push it in, now I should be able to rotate this, and that unlocks it. And there it is. So not difficult to take apart, just a little tricky. Okay, so this now, still not really allowing us to take it off because this plate up here is kind of holding things in place. So let's remove that. Not really holding things in place, just kind of blocking access to things. There is a spring here that looks like it holds some pressure on that clutch there to maybe keep it from spinning too freely. Okay, so that comes off. Nothing really going on in there except this roller here to put some, like a little bit of pressure on the paper there to push it up against the feed roller, which is right here. And the feed roller is driven by that main motor there. As you can see, it turns this way, it feeds the paper in. And there's two methods, or two different ways that the paper takes actually. One of them is down here, like the paper goes in through the bottom, and then the other one is up here. So this, when it goes through the top part of this roller, that's when it's like, you know, coming in and going in before it gets spat out. But when it first feeds in, it actually goes in through the bottom down here. So yeah, first it goes in through the bottom, and then it gets redirected and like routed so it comes out through the top there. It just doesn't like do like a big loop in the back like some other printers do. So that's that. And we've got a couple little optical sensors down here. That might be for, you know, detecting when the paper comes in, I'm guessing. Couple little switches right here on the bottom there. So now this here should be able to come out a little bit easier, and there it goes. So some sort of a lever here, I'm guessing. Oh, okay, this is probably to put some pressure down on the print head, it looks like. So maybe it puts down some pressure right here. It's got like a little nub right here that looks like maybe it gets pushed down. So it looks like that's what that's doing there. And now there is the print head, and we'll probably get a really close look at what that surface actually looks like, because just looking at it right here, it doesn't really look like much. It just looks like a black line, but I can tell that there's like a bunch of little tiny elements right there. So we'll look at that really up close. This piece up here, kind of a interesting shape there. It's not completely flat. It's kind of curved a bit, and then right here there's like a plate, and it's screwed down. But yeah, that's curved. It almost looks like a sort of a heat sink. This right here, definitely a heatsink. This is nothing but aluminum, so this is like sandwich right here between the print head and this other metal bracket right here. This has some springs putting pressure on it, and the fan was actually mounted back here, so this is definitely for cooling off the print head. So that there would be, you know, for cooling it off maybe like in between passes, so that it doesn't stay too hot and, you know, smear some of the color and spots where it's not supposed to go. But other than that, that looks like the whole print head assembly there. We've got a little screw we can take off right here, and then there's just a couple plastic clips right here, and that should a few other little things in there. We got some capacitors. That looks like a resistor or maybe a thermistor. I'm not sure. That looks like a part number right there. Maybe looks like KPR-106-AL2. I don't know. The ribbon comes into here. That looks like they've got, it's like this part of the ribbon is soldered onto this piece right here that goes to the print head, and they've just kind of basically soldered it right here to connect, you know, the interface. There's no like locking flex connector or anything like that. It's just soldered directly onto that. But that's it for the print head. Basically everything is just on here. So it looks like maybe what this little line right here would be is just all the drivers for the elements right there, the little heating elements. Very simple stuff, and that's all mounted on a big block of aluminum that runs all the way across, as you can see right there. So that there's a big block of aluminum, and then that, you know, sandwiches the heatsink right in between right there. The small motor gearing right here actually has nothing to do really with the take up of the spool or anything like that. Actually, it sort of seems like it's like sort of like a little cam system there. It can only go so far. It only goes up to here, and then I can back it off, and it only goes, and then it kind of stops at this point. So this also, what it also does is it takes care of loading the paper or activating this little sort of lever down here that puts pressure up on the paper so that it butts up against the feed roller here, and, you know, feeds the paper in. So if, as I rotate this, we'll see that this kind of comes up, and this is spring loaded. I'm not sure entirely where the spring actually is. Oh, it's right here. You see that spring right there. So that puts pressure on this plate, that puts pressure up against the paper, and allows the main motor to, you run the rollers like this, and that pulls the paper in. And then once this rotates the other way, it basically locks this plate down, and now there's no pressure, so that way we're not feeding another sheet of paper in when the other one's still trying to print out, because it's still using the same roller for the sheet that's printing. And then here's the specs on these little motors here. This one's a 24 volt DC, 5.2 ohm motor there. So I'm guessing that's like per winding. These are made by Moatech company. Same one with the little motor here. It's also, I thought it said 24 volts somewhere. Maybe not. This one isn't 1.8 or 18 degree, I guess, per step. This one here doesn't really say. Yeah, this little one definitely feels pretty coarse. So yeah, it looks like it is like about 18 degrees per step there. The bigger one there has a little bit more resolution, but, you know, it needs to have a little bit more resolution because you want the paper, you know, to just be slowly moving across the print header. You don't want it to be like taking, like, you know, huge steps. But, and then this also has some gearing, so definitely, you know, it's to slow it down and to give it some torque. The roller that actually feeds the paper through, and, you know, like across the print head, is this one down here. That big solid metal one. It's not this right here. This one's actually pretty like free to rotate. There's no gearing or anything going to that. So that there looks like it's mostly just for support, you know, to have the paper, you know, easily roll across it without much drag or anything. And if we look real closely there, it's actually textured. Like it's got some, it almost looks like knurling, but it's very, very fine. And then this metal roller up here, just it's just for putting pressure down on that. It's spring loaded. There is a spring on this side, and then there's a spring on the opposite side there. So that's just putting pressure down on the paper. And that one there, I'm turning the gears right here. You can see that that's what's actually driving the paper across. So there are no actual rubber parts other than the feed roller up here that are dealing with pulling the paper in and out to drive it across the print head. Just realized there's another little optical sensor up here. That looks like it's got something to do with the print head. Not sure what, maybe just to detect if it's up or down or not. Because there's really nothing else there. I mean, there's nothing there other than, you know, like the metal itself. So I'm guessing that's all that's doing. Really not much else to look at here that I can think of. Just a bunch of gears. This little clutch right here has kind of like a felt material sandwiched in between this plate here and the actual gear in the front there. Actually, it looks like it's two. It's got one side over there, like more closer to the metal piece, and then it's got the gear in the middle, and then it's got another piece of felt there. So it's basically, this gear is sandwiched between two plates there, and that's what's driving that. So that way, you know, if this is rotating and this can't rotate anymore, it doesn't tear the film. Alright, so here's our closer look at the board there. Looks like right here we've got a MOSFET on the input, and looks like they're using TR as a designation for transistors on this board, because everything says like TR14 that looks, you know, like anything that would be a transistor, with the exception of like this one right here that says U17, so that's probably a little IC of some sort. And then here's another TR2, that's probably like I don't know, maybe like 2 transistors in a package there or something. This one right here is definitely a transistor. You can see that emitter, collector, and base, and it says TR20. So interesting. There we go. There's that little fuse. Some power supply stuff going on here. We see we got some inductors. Here's the USB connector. There is the connector that goes to the front panel on the top there. Oh, we still haven't even looked at that. We'll do that in a bit. So nothing else much really on here, just a bunch of passive stuff. There's the CPU, there's the flash for that. Here's the interface for the motors. Here's it says U12, that might be some sort of a regulator. It says in and out. That's the connector for the fan there. We can see there's a little transistor here for that. There is the connector for the print head. And right here we've got 3 sets of 333 ohm resistors here, like 4 per package there. So those might be like the drivers or the lines that drive to send the data off to the print head, basically. The bottom side there, we see we've got some capacitors. Another inductor here by the input. Really not a whole ton of stuff. Those right there would be our little motor drivers. They say BD6775. So those would be just like little stepper motor drivers. Some more passive stuff. Transistors, a few ICs there. A couple of power resistors right there. There's the RAM. So that's it. There's really not a whole ton of stuff inside of this little printer. Okay, here is the print head under, well, just using a macro lens. So here's where everything comes in. This is that ribbon there. And we can see that there's a bunch of little fine traces kind of snaking off, going all over the place here. And everything there gets distributed to, I'm going to try to keep it in focus as much as possible, but it's really hard because I only have like a tiny, like a little margin here before it goes out of focus. So anyways, everything runs into these. There's going to be like chips underneath this stuff right here. This basically looks like it's kind of like epoxy. So those are going to be the drivers for the actual little print elements up there. If I can get this to focus, we can see that there's a bunch of like microscopic lines running from those drivers, which are the black blobs on here. You can see they're running up. They kind of fan out a little bit, And then right where that black line is up there, that's going to be our little heating elements. And might be able to get a better shot of those using that scanner lens with my phone. So I'll try to do that and see if we can get a better look at that. But you can see right there where there's that triangular shape in the middle there, that's where it goes into the next one. I don't know how many actual elements run across this thing, so I guess it's as good as mine. I mean, the only way to be able to count this is if we had like a microscope or something. Yeah, there's no way I'm going to try to count all that stuff. So yeah, that black line that just runs there all the way across, that's going to be all the little heating elements. And I think that's the part number, like I said, is KPR 106, AL2. There's some other stuff here, 59, 21, 47, 173, SR 3606, made in China. There's that component right there that I thought maybe was a resistor, although it's not marked. I don't know, it could be like a thermistor or something to monitor the temperature on the printhead. And then over here we just have a couple of caps, so these would probably be for decoupling on the power supply for the drivers. Without a proper microscope, I think this is going to be the best image I'm possibly going to be able to get of the actual printheads. You can see that the lines that run down to where the actual, that black line is, those are going to be all the little heating elements. Looks like there's a line. You can see it right there all the way to the right. If that line that's kind of like in the center right now, but it looks like there's a line that comes all the way down and goes all the way across. So that might be kind of like a common connector or a common, part of the supply, like either positive or negative or whatever. And then that connects to each little element, and then only one side, gets turned on, or say that we have positive coming in through that line. All the elements would have positive going to them, and then the drivers would take turns turning them on and off by grounding out the opposite side of that little heating element there. So it looks like that's how that should work. Just for completeness, we're going to take a look at what this board actually looks like on the other side. I already removed the screw there that was holding it down. Looks like, okay, we've had a couple of clips here. So not only is the screw holding it down, they also have a couple of clips holding the board there in place. Funny thing is that it looks like it should have had screws here on the side, like right there and right there, to kind of clamp the board down, but really they only used the one here. So I guess they figured like, yeah, we're going to save some money by not putting those screws in because we have these clips anyways, so it's just like a bunch of redundant methods of holding it down there. And that's all that is. Well, they actually have a little bicolor LED right here, so I'm guessing maybe once it's all fully charged, maybe that one turns green as well, because as is, I think that one's like red or orange or something when it powers up, and then these two would be green. But yeah, that one doing something. I don't know. Then we got a couple of, or four green LEDs here. Those are the ones that would, select how many pictures per paper. That was that little button. We got a little orange one here, orange one there, and then everything else is green. So yeah, didn't really expect to see a ton of stuff on here either. That's all that is. And then this right here is the interface for whatever camera, would happen to have that connector. I just had a couple springs drop out. There's one there, the other one's on the floor somewhere, it bounced. Not terribly worried about that. So that is the connector. Really not a whole lot of stuff going on here either. We just have the ribbon coming in here, it's soldered to the board. And then we have the appropriate lines, running to that. So no like actual active components. There's not even like capacitors or anything on here. That's all it is just an interface to go from here directly to the board. I didn't realize how terrible the solder job on this upper control board is. Look at those solder joints there. Look how blobby they are. And over here too, like especially look at that one right there on the LED. Super blobby. And the trim is a little bit inconsistent. I mean, that's not too big of a deal, but geez. Tell they probably made these boards in like two completely different places. I mean, this is all hand soldered apparently, but yeah, they didn't really do a great job there on that. Another thing I also noticed here is there's like a little small thermistor right there. It says TH2 right here on the top, and then it was supposed to be a little capacitor, but that's not actually populated there. So it was either through hole or one of these surface mount ones, and they just decided to use the surface mount. Maybe that little thermistor there is just for monitoring the temperature on the print head to make sure it's not getting too hot or whatever, that the whole unit isn't overheating for some reason. Maybe just a little like extra safety there. Alright, so I backed this one up like all the way where none of it would unspool anymore, and I didn't see anything on it, so it looks like this one wasn't even used, like at all. So this one was probably like a brand new cartridge that just got installed into that one and just never got used. But I backed up the one that I had here, and this was actually the new cartridge that I had just installed in it, so there's really nothing else on there, but you can see right there where some of the material that's deposited on the film there was used up. See where right there it says the workbench. So if I were to back it up, you know, we'd see the same thing on some of the other sections of color there. I can actually do it like that and then can back it up. But I have to keep doing it because these lock into place. Right there you can see there's another spot where it used the cyan part of the film. Okay, I had this all backwards here. This is actually the brand new one that I had just pulled out of the package there to do the prints on the workbench stuff. This one, wait, I'm so confused now. No, I think I did say that was brand new. Anyways, this was one of the used ones, and this is not one of my previous used ones. There's actually somebody's face right there. You can kind of just see some eyes. So this one definitely came from that other printer that I got at the thrift store. So I guess if you're getting rid of one of these and you have some sensitive pictures that you printed out, you might not want to leave this in the printer. You know, maybe you might want to toss this part, because it would be possible to, you know, take all the pieces of film there, maybe like run them through a scanner, you know, like recompose the completed image. Because basically what it is now is it's like basically like a negative of your original image there on each one of those layers of film. I just realized what that optical sensor is for. It has nothing to do with the heating element. It's actually for detecting where in you know, in the roll the film actually is, because you can see that there's this black line here. As I advance this, you see right there there's two black lines. So that way, as these run across that photo sensor, it knows, the printer knows, you know, where in the roll the whole film actually is. So it knows that if it's going to be able to start a new print, or if it's at the end, or, you know, whatever. That's how it knows. The sensor inside the printer kind of sits in this spot right here. You can see that there's like a little bit of like reflective material right there on the opposite side of that film. So that's attached to the plastic here. And as the film kind of rolls across it, that's how it's able to, you know, detect these black lines. Or I don't think it's detecting colors, because that's just like a really basic optical sensor where it just like, if something's reflecting back or not, it doesn't actually know if there's any colors to it or not. It just knows when these black lines go across it. Okay, well, now that we got a pretty decent mess of stuff here, let's see if we can put it back together. Maybe we can make a print something without, you know, like the whole cover and everything. We'll just try to watch the whole printer in operation by itself. Okay, well, let's go. Okay, I gotta figure out how this exactly goes in there, because this has to go in at a certain spot so that it you know, it activates properly, and I have not figured that out there, so I've been struggling with this stupid thing. All right, let's see. Ah, okay. See how it's got like there's like no tooth here, and then there's like a big spot right here. So I basically have to match that up with the spots on that gear there, you know, where these will actually kind of like made into, basically. Okay, finally got that in place. Now I can continue with the rest. That took a while. Are you kidding me? I forgot about this piece. Ugh. This should be about the bare minimum we need to be able to get this thing to do something. This I can just kind of rest on top here because the ribbon here kind of keeps it isolated from being able to touch the metal, so I'm not too worried about this making contact with anything. But that should do it, and I think it should still work. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. I'm going to put this cartridge here, insert that, and that little clip holds it in. It doesn't really seem to need anything from the cover itself, so that should be okay. I'm going to stick the paper tray in here in the front. Zoom out a little bit here. Alright. Of course, now that it doesn't have the little tub to sit in, this is kind of lifted because it's you know, it kind of relies on that extra space to kind of keep it tilted there. But that should not be a big deal. In fact, I can probably like just put something down here just to kind of give it a little bit of space. Hey, little USB drive, you should work just well. There we go. That'll do. Alright, let's plug in power here in the back, and the motor there should do something. It's like doing its little system check thing, trying to figure out where it's at. Yep, it's doing something. Okay, I think we should be good to print something, so let's plug in that little USB micro SD reader here. Okay, alright, now this lit up, so it should print. Let's see. That middle button there would be the print button. Oh, there it goes, it's loading paper. Or not. Okay, it looks like the paper's just sliding on the roller here. I might need to clean that roller. It was a bit dusty. Let me clean that real fast. Oh, that was pretty dirty. So I'm just going to let it dry, but it should be okay now. I'm also going to clean this top roller here just to make sure it doesn't leave any more dirt on it. One thing about this printer, because it does rely on like heat melting whatever it's on that film and making it stick to the paper, is that if there's like a bunch of dust and like little fibers or whatever, lint, when the paper goes over the print head, if it encounters like one of those fibers when it's trying to melt the stuff onto the paper, then that fiber will interfere, and in that spot there's going to be like a kind of like a, you know, like an outline of whatever little hair or fiber or whatever that was in that spot. So on this kind of printer, like I always had to make sure that I would wipe the papers, you know, make sure there was like no lint, blow everything out from the inside of this thing if I had to, just to prevent like that kind of stuff from happening. It's not a big deal, you know, if you're not looking at it up close, but it does leave some stuff there, so I would always just try to like minimize it. But okay, this should be dry now. Let's go ahead and pop it back in here. And we're going to hit the start button again. Let me reposition this so we get a better view. I think this should work right there. Okay, hit the button again. I don't know if it's going to restart. Okay, yeah, it is. There it goes. There it goes. Now it's loading the paper. And it's coming out the back. And there goes the first layer. Should be yellow. Yep. Let's move this off to the side here. view of everything here. I don't know if we're going to be able to see much, but you can see how that gear train there works. It engages that clutch up at the top here, but only when it's going in the forward direction. Then when it backs off, this little gear right here engages and disengages. So now I think it's just doing the clear coat, and it should be done. There it is. So still works. I guess that's cool. I didn't break anything this time. And that's what I'm talking about with like little fibers. There was something right there, so you can see where it's stuff didn't adhere properly, and a little bit right there as well. So yeah, that's one of the things about this type of printer that you kind of had to watch out for. But well, I thought that was pretty cool. There's really not a whole lot of stuff in here. I mean, it just relies on that heated print head to deposit the material onto the paper, and that's it. So thanks for watching again, guys. I hope that was kind of enjoyable. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around the bench.